The scaling system of wages that we saw in the previous video represent the whole society. Okay. Now, the question is, well, I guess the next question is, how will the ancient sages propose to solve the problem of wage inequality? We know that wages are clearly unequal, right? Not the same. And there are extremely rich members of the society, also extremely poor members of the society. So how do we solve this problem? In other words, is the distribution of wealth justified? Well, the existence of wage inequality doesn't necessarily represent an unjust society. The reason is, if wages perfectly reflect the contribution of the worker to the society, then from the wages perspective, it is fair, because a person shouldn't be paid more or less than his output. So, under the assumption that wage perfectly reflect the contribution, the question is, does the person contribute to the society as much as he wants to? Right? If the answer is yes, or close to yes, then we say that the society is just, and everybody earns a wage that reflects his ability and willingness to work. So there are really two separate questions here, right? Two separate questions about the equality of wage. One is whether wages reflect the worker's output. That is one question. And another question is whether the worker is able to choose different wage level. Now, we're not going to deal with the first question, although it is important. The reason is, there are plenty of measurement techniques to improve the precision of pay for performance match. We're going to deal with the second question only, because the ancient sages have a lot to offer, okay, to us modern people in this area. The overarching solution to improve the wages inequality and wealth distribution is education. This is the most important task of all the ancient sages in their dealing with the governance of the state and improvement of human nature. Now, the concept is also shared by the great economist Adam Smith, who was, as you know, the founding father of modern economics. He mentioned in his work, The Wealth of Nation, that the difference between the most dissimilar characters, between a philosopher and a common street porter, for example, seems to arise not so much from nature as from habit, custom, and education. Now, of course, there is a difference of natural talent among people, right? But we're not counting on luck. And as Adam Smith pointed out, the element of talent in reality is, in fact, much less than we are aware of. You may recall from our earlier lectures about the importance of repeated training and learning in the development of skills, right? We said that although natural-born talent is useful in its own right, wisdom is something that is possessed by everybody. And the only way to reveal that wisdom is through immersing oneself in the training of one subject at a time and dedication. So this concept drives the methodology of study in Confucianism, Taoism, and the practice of Dharma in Buddhism. So with persistent training and the correct method of education, the importance of natural-born talent starts to diminish in the face of rising wisdom. And also, persistent training means labor specialization and division of labor. Otherwise, expertise could not be formed. So this is why Adam Smith argued that the very different genius which appears to distinguish men of different professions when grown up to maturity, is not upon many occasions so much the cause as the effect of division of labor. So, as compared to genius, education is the only reliable way to bring people up to the required standard for the fitness of different occupations. Interestingly, Confucius shared the same teaching with Adam Smith in this regard. He said, "Those who are born with the profession of knowledge are the highest class of men. Those who learn and so readily get profession of knowledge are the next. Those who are dull and silly and yet compass the learning are another class next to these. As to those who are dull and stupid," well, this is the translation by James Legge. Okay, so, but you know what it means. So as to those who are dull and stupid and yet do not learn, they are the lowest of the people. So what Confucius mean is that natural talent is a very good thing indeed. It's great that if you're born with natural talent, but the learning and education is the next best thing. So because we cannot rely on talent alone, we need education. Even though a person is dull and stupid, he will still be ranked with those other two classes of men in the final result. So we understand that in the medium to long term, people are eventually differentiated by education. But the word education has different focus in ancient China. The contemporary meaning of education primarily focuses on the training of technical skills. And as a university teacher, I think you can put faith in my word. The education, especially higher education, is to a large extent job-oriented, and it emphasizes increasing the graduate's competitiveness with the immediate goal of promoting earning potential. In fact, this is a concept that has infiltrated into the education in high school as well. Now, I guess this is an inevitable outcome, like it or not, as education has now become an industry. On the one hand, the career perspective of university graduates would impact the student intake and university revenue. And on the other hand, the rate of high school leaver entering into the good universities has an impact on the students' intake and revenue of high schools. So when university education becomes more career focused and money driven, high school education cannot escape from the same fate. So I would say, this is an unfortunate picture worldwide. But the education in ancient China focuses on something very different. It focuses on ethics, also the principle of harmony, the principle of reciprocity, causality, virtuous conduct, human nature, and the different methods of achieving enlightenment. Why? Why was this the case? Well, the mechanism is actually very similar to what results in the current status of modern higher education, actually. It is still about career choice. In ancient China, working in the government was the highest choice of scholars. And if you work in the government, then you would be provided with the resources and authority to make a positive impact on people's life. Now, of course, except a few inevitable bad fruits, that was the ambition of government officials in general. And more importantly, the selection of officials by the government was largely based on the successful demonstration of superiority in ethical conduct and morality. So this selection criteria naturally became the aim of education of ancient China. And even without the career motivation, it was the aim of ancient education anyway. So if we ask, what is the overall statement that summarizes the entire traditional Chinese education, we can resort to the 3-character canon, and we look no further than the first 8 sentences. First of all, it says, men at their birth are naturally good. This is the highest guiding principle of education. The logic is that, look, if human beings are naturally bad, then there is simply no way to make them good. Just like the fact that, no matter how many times that we wash a tire, we cannot make it white. In learning Buddhism, the first thing that is taught to the disciples is that everybody has Buddha nature. And that's what makes it possible for people to become a Buddha. In traditional Chinese culture also, it is recognized that everybody is a sage, and the purpose of education is to return people back to the intrinsic sagehood, if you like. Now, the question is, if everybody is naturally good, then why aren't we good enough? Why are we so far away from our sagehood? Well, this is explained by the next 2 sentences. It says, their natures are much the same, but their habits become widely different. So, the habits. Okay, the habits of people can be influenced by many factors, such as external environment, family environment, friends, people that you talk to, the general social atmosphere, etc. And some people develop distrust, right? Distrust in society because of family neglect as a child. Okay, so that is a family imprint on their interpretation of human relation. In Buddhism, such habit also comes from the habit that we brought with us through many, many lifetimes. The Canon goes on and says, let me go back. So the Canon goes on and says, if foolishly there is no teaching, the habits will deteriorate. So the key word here is deteriorate. It means that if there is no teaching, the habit will change, and there is only one direction that it changes, which is bad. This is because we're lacking the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. That's why it becomes bad or becomes worse. If we look around us, as the Buddha pointed out very clearly, there are more negative influences than positive influences. So without education, the probability of a person becoming worse in their habits is unfortunately very high. So this explains to us why education is needed so much. So if we accept that education is important, then how should we do that? How should we, what is the methodology of education? Well, this is represented by the last 2 sentences. It says the right way in teaching is to attach the utmost importance in thoroughness. Now, the word thoroughness echoes the method of immersing oneself in one subject at a time. This method focuses on revealing wisdom rather than acquiring a lot of practical knowledge. As we said before, right? Wisdom is more important than knowledge because with wisdom, a person is able to tell right from wrong and ethical from unethical. A person with knowledge but no wisdom may do something very wrong and devastating without knowing, like a man with an axe in his hand, right? There's no right or wrong about the axe, but you can either use it to build a house and serve the people, or, kill a lot of people. So in traditional Chinese culture and ancient education, the immersive learning method and ethical education goes hand in hand, because wisdom is naturally possessed by the people, and not something externally obtainable. Then an enlightened person must have wisdom. Meanwhile, because ethics is also the nature of people, an enlightened person must also be ethical. So the ultimate goal, you can see, right, of ancient Chinese education is to achieve three things at the same time: enlightenment, wisdom, and ethics. And they're naturally achieved simultaneously. In a number of occasions throughout this course, we have discussed the process of wisdom generation through, immersive learning technique. So we'll not repeat it here, but please be mindful that immersive learning by no means denies the necessity of learning widely. Okay? A person is encouraged to learn many techniques so that he's able to do more good to the society. But it comes with a condition, that is, he must acquire at least some degree of wisdom and enlightenment first through immersive learning, before embarking onto a journey of diversified learning. Right? So now coming back to the traditional Chinese education, the aim is to return human beings to their natural goodness and move away from the bad habits. So this kind of self-cultivation is, much more important than acquiring knowledge as such, and also more difficult to do. But it's a must for the benefit of human development and the sake of human society.